Hello, Fred.
Hello, Kristin. How are you today?
I'm doing well, navigating this crazy life of ours.
It just keeps getting stronger and stronger, let's just say, whatever that energy is that's pushing us all to find that clarity. But it can become overwhelming at times for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so glad to be doing this podcast right now, just to share some of the deep thoughts that we have around topics such as today. We're going to talk about why are we here? And Fred and I just decided this. So just, to remind you, we don't rehearse any of this. We just throw a topic out there. And I think it's a really important one because a lot of people are questioning that. Like, why did I come here? What is fun about this right now? And so I welcome your thoughts.
Oh God. Yeah, that's a deep rabbit hole, right? But it is the foundation of our existence is why would we choose to incarnate at this time and experience everything that's been going on for the past 4 years, in addition to obviously all the stuff previously. It just feels like the past 4 years have almost stopped the clock and created a whole new experience. What is going on, and why are we here? Why do I feel this way? And what can I do about that?
Yeah, and for me, it comes down to leadership. I feel, you know, we're coming back into oneness with who we really are. And I just, for instance, look at my life. The young girl I was pretty tapped into, I think, my natural essence. But then there was a period where I strayed from that and I was just trying to live this life of, following the rules of the world and then feeling very confused about things as well. And, recently, I would say the last 10 years, really doing the inner work and then having moments in the past year, even thinking, have I made any progress? Like, why does it feel so heavy still? And knowing that, like, it's not linear, it's more of a spiral. And, and I'm grateful. Then I have a day where I'm like, I'm grateful, even though that felt really hard. You can tell you're making progress, but I don't know. What are you thinking?
It's just fascinating because of the roller coaster of emotions that we get on with these, with life in general, to where we can find a moment of a day, even if it's like seconds, minutes, or hours, or maybe if we're fortunate, like a whole day, to where we feel in a very elevated, happier, loving state. But it just feels, at least from my experience and what I'm hearing from people, that there's a lot more of those moments and times and seconds, minutes, hours of days to where it's not so comfortable. To where,
Yeah.
and I'm really generalizing that,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it can be brutal for people. I've had more dealing more this year with depression and apathy than anything else with people. And it's not their usual state, it's something that's really becoming more prominent in a way, I think.
Yeah, so apathy, for instance, because I know I've had several runs with that feeling. And when it comes back now, I sometimes immediately go to, is this mine or is this more the collective energy? And it's helped me because there's no like event that happened where I should be feeling the way I feel, but I really feel it for an hour or two. And then I have to kind of go into that still point and realign. And so, keep that in mind, for anyone listening, that sometimes it's not even your own.
It's so true because we do have that whole collective consciousness energy that's around us 24/7. We're in it, we're living in it. And remember, like 99% of our DNA is the same from each person to the next. So a lot of what other people are experiencing that it's in your energetic field, you're going to recognize, just from a genetic aspect, the core of that existence is going to be recognized as familiar to you. And
Mhm.
that's where we can start to see a lot of people that start to take on the collective's energy. And then there's also going to be some of that deeper unconscious programming that may be playing out too, because a lot of light workers or people that are here just in general to want to help people, have programs of taking on other people's pain in order to help them. So then we have that whole unconscious program energy that we're almost seeking other people's challenges to bring into our existence. And then it comes back to, why would that happen? Why would we want that? And why is a definite interesting answer. And if you think about it, like, what do kids ask more than anything else? Why? Why? So when you see a child that doesn't, I'm not breaking it down, but their brain's not like an adult brain. The brain doesn't really get formed till the late teens. And so when a child's asking why, to me, it's almost like that's that hardwired, deeper program that we all have ingrained in us that allows us to incarnate, because we want to come here to experience why things happen.
Yes.
I know I mentioned this before, and to me, it's just the simple thing of finding love in the face of fear. If you want to, for me, this is completely from what I've seen, what I've witnessed, and what I've experienced, is about the simplest foundational program of why we're here, is to just find love in the face of fear.
I love that you bring that up, because I've really been practicing whatever it is in my life that feels the most difficult challenge. And I've been trying to love it, because when you love whatever that is, that's really hard for you in a particular moment, it softens it.
Yeah.
And it's just, and when I think about why am I here, I feel that I'm here to come back into union or harmony with myself, right? But at the same time, it's for us as a collective to not be divided and separate, for us to come back into union and harmony, and think about how that's going to look on an external, especially with the political arena. Somebody completely opposed to your beliefs. Can you love them? And I think that's a question we can all ask right now. What would it take for me to love them?
That's a beautiful question, because if we looked at everything that way, it would really break things down a lot easier for us, and we wouldn't get so reactive and thrown into that victim mentality that we feel that something is happening to us, or someone outside of us can do something to us that we feel that we're not in control of. So victimization and control are huge aspects that will distract us from learning why we're here, unless you look at it as a tool to see what you can learn from that.
Because if you're in that state of feeling like you're doomed, which in a victim state you will, you're not going to be motivated to be curious or have wonder about who you are. You're just going to be on autopilot, numbing and escaping, which is basically the agenda of this world. So anyone that is breaking out and even listening to Fred and I on this podcast, like, you're on that path of wanting to know why you're here, and I just want to send you my love today and just encourage you to be gentle with yourself, because it's so pioneering, it's so courageous at this point in history to just be trying to self-lead even.
Absolutely. And it kind of like comes back to, because when you see victimization mentality and also feeling that someone else has control over you, first of all, it's just a reflection of what your beliefs are, what your brain believes to be its truth based on what it has experienced up to this point. And so that's the underlying imbalanced program that's more based on fear that keeps creating these scenarios externally, because it really is just trying to get your attention because it wants to be balanced.
Yes.
And the situations that can be created, as we can see, are endless. And now we have this amazing new device, not new, but this device that allows us to go on and look at the world's population and what everyone else is experiencing, so we can find other reasons to feel like a victim.
Yeah, and also I think we get on those devices to find communion with others, right? That's really what we're seeking, a
Hopefully.
connection,
Yeah.
feeling like you're not alone. But how often is it that you get on your phone and you feel the opposite? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm back to fear. I was better before I even got on this. And so I think it's really important that we have the awareness of that, right now, because numbing out on the phone is not helping either.
No, and it's messing with brain chemistries. I'm seeing a lot of dopamine challenges, people with low dopamine, because the things that used to provide them the dopamine releases, just the tolerance and the threshold's going so high that they can't even get dopamine energy anymore, or that feeling and experience of things that used to provide that for them.
Yeah, and what's so exciting to me is when I do come into the still point and I just get that inner clarity, anything's possible.
Yes.
I can even go directly into that fear and dissolve it, and just in wonder and curiosity, reach for that next thing that I can play with at least,
Yep. But
and that's our power.
thank you. That's exactly what I was just going to say. And I'm sorry for interrupting you on there. Is that we have to take our power back.
Yes.
We need to understand consciously what's going on this deeper unconscious level, and not just feel like we're just reacting to what's going on instead of owning what we are creating. And we've got to take ownership of everything that you experience in your life. You are creating. No one is doing anything to you.
And let me repeat that, because Fred has shared that statement with me a lot in my personal calls with him, where I might be having a difficult day. And that has helped me so much.
Oh, good.
Owning that you are creating this, or someone you're worried about, say it's a child,
Oh, yeah.
owning that this is being created for them,
Yeah.
and for you, because you're in relationship with them.
Absolutely.
That has been a game changer for me. And it's allowed me immediately to be thankful and grateful for this difficult situation.
Yep. And that still point is where we want to achieve. And the still point is that balanced state, and I always like equate things to quantum. That still point state is the wavelength energy. Anything and everything is possible, loving or fearful, in every situation, every possible detail. But what we want to get into the still point state for is just to realize, pull ourselves out of a reactionary state and take ownership that, all right, there is something happening in my life that doesn't feel good,
Yes.
whatever that is. And good Lord, the details can be endless with that. And we want to sit back a little bit, pull ourselves out of that reactionary state, and look at what it is that we are creating. Now, obviously, it's not conscious creation, because we wouldn't consciously choose to create trauma for us to re-experience over and over again. But if it is happening, take ownership that there's just something in there that's imbalanced, that's trying to get your attention, because it wants love so it can be in that balanced still point state.
Yes.
Easier said than done, granted. But if you think about how the brain works, this is vital. The brain needs to understand what's going on first before it can start making choices that are in reflection of that understanding. So we don't even realize that we're creating everything in our life, and that includes all the people that we don't like, all the things that they say, things that they do, what they represent, what party they're in, or what player they are, or whatever it is. The details are endless. So don't get lost in the detail, and bring it back to that still point state and say, if I am creating this, why? Why am I creating this? What's the loving experience that I see in relationship to this external thing that is creating a victim mentality in myself?
Yeah. And for me, that's often just to be the creator of moving yourself out of that suffering, right? Because if you can unravel that enough to soften enough to be okay enough, you're back in harmony between fear and love, in that, if you take the infinity symbol and the intersection there, and that's really where you get that infinite awareness of, I can achieve anything from here.
Absolutely. And also, we have to realize that we probably have incarnated more than one time.
Yes. Let's go there. Let's go there.
All right, because this is the deep, deep, deep concept. I mean, there's ways that you could muscle test, use kinesiology to see how many different incarnations you have on Earth. But to me, it's not a bad idea, but it's a little brain candy. It can be distracting. But at least it allows you to understand that you cannot experience every life experience in one existence, unless you're going to live to be 600, 700 years old. So unless you're a vampire, you know, you don't get to experience all of these, everything that's potential. But if you realize that we can't experience everything in one lifetime, then the things that trigger us the most emotionally in this existence is there because we are there to find balance.
Yes.
And to realize that if there's a person that we are creating in our existence, you know, whatever that person may be that triggers us the most, is there's a deeper reason why that person triggered you.
Yes.
And maybe in another lifetime, we were that person, not specifically that person, that could still be a possibility, but maybe we were a person that reflected the same beliefs and experiences of this person that's triggering us now. And usually, if it triggers you the most, there's a deeper reason in there, and it usually comes down to self judgment on an unconscious level that well, there's no way I could ever be this person in another lifetime. And we're not saying that you're not that person in this existence. That's the reason why it's such a trigger. But to think that you're not going to be potentially playing out those energies of this person that triggers you in another lifetime, you got to pull back a little bit and look at, man, we're going to experience everything there is to experience on this planet. You know, and that's all the loving experiences, that's all the fearful experiences, that's all the victim states, and that's all the states where we were that reflection of unconditional fear in another lifetime because we wanted to experience what that fear is on a different level of pushing it out versus having to become a victim.
And so I'm just thinking about that, you know, situation where you feel extremely triggered by someone else. What is it really at play there if it's from another lifetime?
Oh, damn. How deep do we want to go with an example? Because I have a perfect example, but it's
Let's go there. It'll resonate for some.
Shit. It's usually an incredibly triggering topic to discuss.
Okay.
And I saw this in 2020, you know, after everything just shut down and the world just went quiet. Everyone was in their space. They had more free time. More people got on their devices. And then all of a sudden you see all this stuff coming out globally of what's going on the planet. The topic I see that can be the most triggering, but yet I think it's like the elephant in the room that a lot of people may not want to talk about. Is abuse of children.
I think you're right. Yes.
Let's go to that. Let's go there. Why not? You know,
Why not?
Hey, if we want to go deep, let's go deep. Because I just got chills with that one. Oh shit.
I know, I did too.
All right. And this is a topic, like I said, a lot of people don't like. Now, when I say abuse of a child, you know, there's multiple forms of abuse of a child. Of course, obviously, you got emotional, you got physical, you have sexual. You have all these different ways that you can perceive or create scenarios to a child or with a child that is creating unconscious programs in them that are related to fear, especially that relates to the abuse.
Okay.
It blew my mind when I first got into this. Oh my God, it's coming up almost on 9 years now, to where I couldn't believe how many of my clients were sexually abused. It was mind numbing to me because I'm like, this cannot be an accurate statistical, you know, reflection of the whole. And now, granted, it probably isn't, but even statistically, they say, I don't even know what it is now, like 25% of children are sexually abused. I think it's much higher, you know, because
I do too.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on, you know, that's not divulged or ever understood. And a lot of people may not even consciously remember the experiences.
They don't a lot. They bury it.
Thank God, honestly. I mean, honestly, I've seen people that don't know they didn't know they were abused. And it's not like you can definitely say yes or no if they were, but it's more or less like, does it really matter? Do we want to know the details? The people I work with that have the most challenges are the ones that consciously remember the abuse. Because then it's something that's in their present mind and their unconscious mind versus just unconsciously running that you're not even consciously aware of. So let's pull that back a little bit and let's take a look at the statistics of how many children are, you know, sexually abused on this planet. even if it's 25%, let's just go with the low ball number. I think it's higher and closer to 50%, honestly, but let's take it down to 25%. So 1 out of 4 children on this planet are going to be sexually abused. Now, remember, we got to pull back. We all agree to experience what we experience in a lifetime. And this is that whole time doesn't exist thing. So we create our experiences, everything that happens, in order to be able to learn these lessons of what we want to do with this energy and how to bring things into balance, how to find love in the face of fear. So one of the most intense ways to create imbalanced programs with fear would be physical abuse or sexual abuse that could also include emotional abuse. So it's like the trifecta of abuse to a child. Mm-hmm. Which is going to create a lot of imbalanced unconscious programs. Biggest one I see is love is abuse. Because as children and genetically, we believe like our families represent love. So whatever happens to us and our families do with us or to us, our brain is unconsciously going to take that on and say, this must be what love is, because this is what our family is doing with us.
And that's why you see these people go on to be in relationships that are abusive.
And they get out of it and they're able to break out of the relationship and they're like, yes, I did it. And they recovered. And then they get into another relationship. And guess what? It just repeats the cycle. Because
it's safe for them.
What's that?
It feels safe, it's what they know.
It is. It's like that Stockholm syndrome, to where the person that's abusing you is also keeping you alive. Yes. So the ego and the fight or flight connects. That even though this is painful, you're still alive, so keep doing it or don't fight it, because what if you fight it? What could happen? So it really creates these really deep imbalanced programs to where we seek the fear thinking that it's keeping us safe. Mm-hmm. So pull back. 1 out of 4 kids are sexually abused. So if you've incarnated on this planet at least 4 times, odds are you were abused in one of those lifetimes. Now, if 1 out of 4 kids is being abused, that means 25% of the families are going to be the ones doing the abusing. Mm-hmm. And which means if you've been in lifetimes 4 times or more, which is probably most people, we can test this, it's hundreds, sometimes thousands of incarnations. Because not every incarnation is going to be super intense. There's a lot of just mild, play the middle of the road thing just to kind of experience life in a different way. So 1 out of 4 people in a lifetime chose to come in to abuse a child.
Wow, yes.
Now, I'm not saying that if that statement triggered you, which it was, and it triggered me too when I first came, when this first presented itself, I'm like, I would never do that. And we're not saying that you are doing that in this existence, but because it is so prevalent, and it is being chosen so frequently to experience in a lifetime, there's got to be a reason why. So what I've found is people that get triggered by people externally, especially when the whole pedophilia thing came through, the whole Epstein thing exploded and it just opened up a shadow, and a dark shadow that people never knew really existed. Mm-hmm. So when we are angry at pedophiles or people that abuse children, we are really angry at them because we know it's what we wouldn't do in this lifetime. And so therefore it's such a vast separation of our personal experiences that we want to push it away because of how dark it is. Mm-hmm. But if we pull back and say, look, what if in another lifetime I was a parent that sexually abused a child? Mm-hmm. 1 out of 4, it's going to happen, so statistically what the challenge is, there is from a soul level, because our soul is the culmination of all of our incarnations. So we have a soul that's in one lifetime was sexually abused, and another lifetime we did the sexual abusing. Imagine the internal conflict that's going on and the self-judgment that's going on a deeper unconscious level between those 2 existences, or even in this existence that may not include any of that, being abused or abused. So therefore, the self-judgment really is coming. The reason why this person triggers us so much is because we don't want to do it in this lifetime. It's not a loving experience, but the deeper underlying energy is we're judging ourselves because we did it in another lifetime.
I love that explanation. And, for anyone listening, just think about maybe you've met someone for the first time and you were just completely triggered by them and you have no idea why.
Yep.
That's how some of these feelings start, and truly to gain your empowerment. I know situations, there was a woman I worked with one time that I had to work for her, and it was deep. I didn't know what it was, but there was just an immediate knowing that this person and I had something to resolve, right? And it was a beautiful situation in the end because I learned to have a voice in a situation there that it took so much courage and to put some boundaries in place. And it really was empowering and a learning opportunity for me to reclaim. Maybe there were soul fragments, that I had to pull back in my body. What a gift to have a meeting with her,
Oh yeah.
in this lifetime or whatever you want to call it. So there's no mistake, who you're encountering.
No.
And if you can embrace those feelings and triggers, my gosh, it's amazing what you can achieve.
Absolutely. So if you're in that situation, maybe you were abused, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Now, listen, most of my life, I've had some really challenging issues in my life related to sexuality to where I couldn't understand why. I didn't understand why this was happening to me. Just, it wasn't something that was prominent, but it would pop up occasionally. And I never connected it and saw, wanted to go deeper as to what's creating this. But through a healing event, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, that I experienced personally, it was kind of shown to me in a very unique way that I was sexually abused as a child. I
Mm,
have no conscious memory of this. My hands reflect this tremendously now. And I remember looking at my hands going, I don't remember any trauma. This something's not right. It didn't register. But when I found out that I was sexually abused, honestly, it was the biggest relief of my life. It sounds so bizarre, but it allowed my brain to connect the dots as to things I didn't know why it was happening. Now, like I said, thankfully, I don't consciously remember it. So it's like a memory it's like a memory I don't remember.
yes.
But it happened. And then once I understood it, I was like, whoa, now I get it. Now I connect the dots. But the deeper energy, because not everyone's going to experience that, trust me, there's most people that consciously remember it to where they're just in that fight or flight. So if we pull it back and we chose, good Lord, this is one of those things like, why the hell did we ever choose this? I think the reason why sexual abuse is so prominent and so prevalent in our existence is because it's probably one of the best ways to bring in an extreme level of imbalance due to fear
Yeah, I
that
would.
we're here to resolve later in life.
Mhm.
It's a big lesson. It's like, oh shit, you're taking on that project, the project that no one wants to take on, but yet 25%, if not more, of the people choose to take it on. Is if we're here to find love in the face of fear, then we obviously have to be pre-programmed at an earlier age, pre-5, to be front loaded with programs that are more imbalanced, way more fear than love. And abuse is the biggest one I see. That's the easy, not easiest, but well, it's the quickest, most effective way to bring in a very, very deep seated imbalance level associated with fear.
So how do you leverage that today with regards to the question, why are you here?
Great question. So if you, now we can use this example, but and if abuse doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Fill in the blank for whatever does trigger you. Whatever person triggers you, and what are those characteristics about that person that triggers you? It all comes back to the same deep, like you just said, the same simple question: why are we here?
Mhm.
So if we are here and we are getting triggered by something so greatly, it's about pulling back and putting ourselves in that victim or abuser, not the victim, the abuser's situation as to why would they choose to want to experience that? Or even deeper yet, why would I choose to be an abuser in a relationship in another lifetime that I may not consciously be aware of? And it's about experiencing both sides to this. Now, people that sexually abuse children, what do you think happened to them in their childhood?
They were likely abused.
How else are you going to create that program in your life unless your brain believes it to be truth? Now, I am not glorifying the abusers by any way. But if we just pull back in a situation and say, my God, this person, when they were younger, they were sexually abused too. So their brain doesn't know any different. They think this is normal. This is what life should be. So when they get older and they're not consciously aware because they don't understand the why are we here thing, they're just going to repeat patterns and they're just going to recreate those patterns. So instead of looking at like a pedophile as like, oh my God, this is the person who needs to be hung, jailed, killed, have a little bit of compassion to see what their life experiences were up to that point, with also knowing that we all agree to experience what we experience. And just because we don't like what another person is choosing to experience because it may threaten us, doesn't mean it's still not a viable choice for another soul to want to listen and want to experience.
Yeah, and I think the distinguishing factor is, this is subconscious that a person takes on that. So a 5-year-old child that's beaten his father and then goes on to beat his own children, it's not that he consciously chooses to be a father like that. Subconsciously, he's not resolved those issues or beliefs. So he's just naturally, I see this all the time with people raised by alcoholics, they go on to abuse alcohol. It's like the abuse, just whatever form, and it's important to bring in that level of compassion. Number one, they may not even have the awareness
Yeah.
of where it's created from.
Yep.
But then you can, if you don't have the awareness, you can't step in and change that behavior,
Absolutely. And like, once again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying that it's like that, oh my God, you were a pedophile in another lifetime if you've incarnated here more than 5 times.
No, right.
And even if that's true to some extent, there's nothing wrong with that. We have to get the judgment out of here. And listen, what we mostly say and what we normally create rules about, don't kill a person, don't abuse a person, don't rape a person, don't steal from a person, don't physically harm a person. We create all these laws and rules because what we really, really, really are saying is we don't want any of that to happen to us or people that we love.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, is it going on every day? How many people are murdered every day? God, we don't even know how many people are abused every day. So it obviously is going on. We don't want to like put blinders on and just say it doesn't exist. But we just want to realize that, hey, if we don't feel like we've experienced either of that, the abuser or being abused, that's great. Good for you. Then maybe that's not one of the big life lessons for you to learn. But if something is triggering you, I can tell you what really resolves a lot of those triggers are bringing in forgiveness and compassion for yourself for other incarnations where you may have been doing the same thing that is triggering you right now.
Yeah, and even taking that to another place is just, learning to bring in that forgiveness for yourself, or even making decisions in this lifetime. I'm finding that's really powerful, because if something you've done has brought a lot of suffering to you, the gift in it is that it's helping you figure out your true purpose. Why are you here at your most visceral, or whatever level in your body that's really propelling you forward. You're going to come face to face with that desire to be a leader in this, or become this person who does this. Your true essence is going to be revealed to you because you had that difficult situation. That is such a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And forgiveness will allow you to take advantage of it. You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive the other people. You have to have compassion and bring love to the situation so that you can reclaim your power and help others.
Absolutely. Because when we can take ownership of what we create in our life and not look at it as a victim state, or that someone's done us wrong or that we didn't deserve this, it puts the pressure, so to speak, on where it starts. It allows you to
Yes.
understand why. So it's not there to just make you run or distract or avoid. It's there to show you an imbalance in your unconscious that may not be from this existence. It could be from another lifetime that you're experiencing, because technically, if time doesn't exist, we are in all of our incarnations simultaneously.
Yes, that's
A
a whole other.
whole different mind issue going on there. But if you really truly think about it, whatever age you are right now, if you're the same age in all your incarnations, there's a lot of horizontal energy. What I mean by that is not just one singular lifetime, me as Fred, it's all the other lifetimes where I'm 54 that I'm still alive that's bleeding into this horizontal experience of all of my incarnations as a soul. So as the energy is so damn intense over the past 4 years of where Earth is, and that's a whole nother topic as to why that is. But with the energy being so intense, there's a lot of bleed through I'm seeing, especially from people that are incredibly sensitive and intuitive.
And that comes back to why we're feeling so raw at times,
Oh, God, yeah.
and just knowing, I really think we don't need to know, coming back to why is important, the question of why, but sometimes the why can be left out as well. And we can just, not try and get in our head and overanalyze something, but really find a powerful place within ourselves to proceed,
Yep.
you know?
And be gentle with yourself. Realize
Yes,
that
it's so key.
so many times, and I hear this, and I've even said it myself, is that we go through work, we understand what's going on, we resolve unconscious programs, we resolve the healing, and then it recreates itself again. We're like, I thought I dealt with this. Well, what if the reason why you are experiencing it again is because you already resolved it in this lifetime, but there are other lifetimes that are going on horizontally that do not have the capacity or the energy to understand it or resolve it. So then what happens is what I'm seeing is people are pulling in other lifetimes experiences to resolve them through this physical experience because we already did it once. So we know how to do it. So then, like a magnet, all these challenges come into this existence to resolve them for you as a soul.
I just had a flashback to an incident that happened a year ago. My dog had run into the side of my house going really fast. She was chasing like a rabbit. And literally, I feel like it almost killed her, Fred. Like she hit so hard, her fur was like on the side of my house. And I didn't know what to do. And I just dropped to my knees at that point and I like said a prayer before I even went over to her. I just felt called to do that. When I went over to her, she was fine. And
Hmm.
I feel like what you're bringing up, like we jumped a timeline there, like where she wasn't fine. It was obvious. I saw her limping before I, went down and said this prayer, but I just bring that in because it flashed through my mind and I feel it has relevance. But this is the world we're living in where there are these multiple versions. It's almost like those books I used to read when I was little, and it was like, pick your ending.
Yes,
And
exactly.
can you rewrite what's already been chosen? Like that's something we'll discuss too, but
Oh, yeah, that's
everything's get part of the playground right now.
and it is, and there's a reason why there's 9 billion people on this planet, because there's a lot of souls that wanted to experience the energy of what Earth is right now. It's intense. It's the highest energy on Earth we're going to see in 52,000 years. So it's like this is the time. If you want to come in a lifetime and you want to resolve challenges, this is definitely the energy of the era that we're aware of. That would be the easiest time to do it. Easiest meaning we have access to understanding how things work and the energy in order to shift things. So that's where you're talking like multiple timelines, is that we are bringing things in from other lifetimes to resolve them here because this is where it's so easily done. And we knew coming in that that's what we were going to do. Plus,
Yes.
if you even
Yes.
want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, you can incarnate as the same person multiple times. Like I found that this is, I think, the fifth or sixth time that I came in as Fred, that was born in 1970. Because think about when you're in life and you're in a major pivotal point in your life where you can see you have two options and you're going to choose one or the other. The reason why that is such a pivotal experience is because of those two choices, whichever one you're going to choose in this lifetime, maybe in another lifetime as Fred, I chose the other one. Because if that option is present and it's so prevalent and has to, this is your choices, that other choice has to be available because it exists.
I love it because I remember a dream so vividly. Like sometimes we have dreams and you just know that you needed to have that dream to remember something. So I had this dream where I was standing at a kiosk up above in black space and I was selecting my parents. I was selecting, and I selected how I looked. So I know I looked the same. But I remember vividly, I chose South Carolina as where I was going to incarnate, right? And it just aligns with what you said. Like that South Carolina version of me could be my same age. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It was so vivid, this dream. And then
Mhm.
I jumped over. I was like kind of pushed over, and it was so cool. I was like, wow, is that how it's done? You know?
Yeah. And I think once we understand this and how it works and why it's happening, then we can start to consciously choose that. We could
Mhm.
say, hey, look, like when I'm presented with a choice and I'm a very challenging time in my life, that's like a decision point. That's a major milestone in your existence. So what we can do also is tap into that deeper intuitive knowing, get into a meditative state and say, show me the other lifetimes, show me the other existences where I was here before and what I chose and what it would lead to. Just to try to look at things a little bit differently and not look at physical bodies so linear and look more at it from that spiritual quantum perspective of anything and everything is possible. That's the deeper energy that we really would want if we're here to consciously create.
So as we bring it back, we've kind of taken it on multiple
I know.
tangents.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you can take from this show is just number one, start having fun and enjoy this journey. Like you're here, it's not easy,
No,
but I mean, look at what we're doing, and we've gotten further. If we've had multiple incarnations, this is the one where we're going all the way, I
absolutely.
believe.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going through this for nothing.
exactly.
So, hold that in mind and start to love yourself. Like love this person who's been through all of these things we talked about and still navigating.
Totally. And be gentle with yourself when it comes to self judgment and judgment of others. Realize that when we can just at least understand unconsciously that, okay, I create everything in my existence. Now, that's a big unconscious program to understand, just to know that we do create it because it does release that victim mentality and then put us into a fight or flight is to really look at things and pull yourself out of the emotion if possible and view what this physical body of yours has chosen to experience and why. Why would I ever choose to be abused at an earlier age? I don't know, maybe because in another lifetime that we were the abuser and we're here to find the balance, or the person that abused me in this lifetime, maybe I abused that person in another lifetime. Or maybe I'm just here to shift and move this out of my genetic line so it doesn't keep repeating itself, end these patterns that we start to see. So we want to really just be more gentle with ourselves and with everyone else in what they are experiencing and going through to some extent too. We don't have to like
Okay.
them. We don't have to like them, but at least we can understand, all right, they're choosing something different. And if this person triggers me, I want to thank that person for triggering me because they are reflecting my imbalance that wants to be loved.
And sometimes for me, just seeing that person as their younger self helps to see them in a new light. The little version of them that didn't
Oh,
know any better and that was hurting. It
that
really does help to just, whatever it takes, because you're the only one suffering. You may
really,
feel it's funny how that forgiveness works. Like we feel like we can't forgive them because it's our civic duty to hold this barrier, whatever you're doing. I mean, really, when you unravel it, that other person's not sitting there thinking those thoughts. That's creating pain in your own body. The
yep,
pain's in your body.
you're
So if you want to release the pain in your body, you have to find the balance you're speaking of. And it's just in our highest service to forgive.
It really is. And it's not about forgiving them in like just in a way that like, all right, I just want to forgive them. It's about understanding that they're playing a role that you wanted them to play. So if anything, we should be very thankful for whatever role that anyone has agreed to play in our existence because it's part of our evolution as a soul. And I know it's hard sometimes to dig deep into that. And listen, I understand when we have cellular trauma from abuse and situations in our life to where we will get thrown into fight or flight when we hear it. And sometimes this just doesn't make sense. And sometimes it's really hard to fully integrate and own that we do create these things. So maybe that's what we can do, maybe as just to kind of wrap this up with a nice little short little meditation and a healing, of just letting you know that it's okay that you create your existence and to take ownership in that, and that you can feel safe in owning what you have created or chose to create in your life.
Yeah, let's do that.
Is there anything else that you would like to think of that you could think we could throw in with this that may kind of like help break this energy up a little bit about victimization?
Well, I heard something the other day about soul contracts that I thought was interesting. And it says if your soul contract with someone has ended, that is why you're not seeing that person anymore. And
Mm.
I really loved that. So maybe we can weave that in as well. I feel like everything has a purpose, whether you
Okay.
call it a soul contract, but these people are our teachers. And so maybe some of them are ending for you right now.
So what we can also do is just kind of clean up any loose ends. If there's any relationships that you're in that aren't really serving you to the highest and best, so to speak, because it's no longer needed, but it's just like a residual connection, we can let these things go. We
Yeah,
can
let's cut those cords.
cut those cords. If you want to call it karma, I like to call it karma, quantum karma, because there is karma to me is just a reflection of past lives, but technically we're in all of our future lifetimes too. So there is no past and future. It's all simultaneous. So that's why I like to call it karma versus karma. Plus, when you create a new term for your brain, it creates a whole new foundation and doesn't necessarily relate it to something that's already existing that may be imbalanced.
I love
So
that.
so we can bring in, this understanding that you create your existence, you're safe to be able to create your existence, let go of any cords or connections with people that are no longer needed, because maybe now just seeing why it happened or understanding, or even just wanting to know why it happened, can let that energy go of where you're always judging and fighting this person. So if you're also open, let's bring in forgiveness and compassion for yourself, and forgiveness and compassion for all people that you have chose to create in your life without a condition. We want to unconditionally forgive and bring in compassion for everyone, because everyone plays the role that we wanted them to play. And for lifetimes where we may have been the abuser, we want to bring in forgiveness and compassion for ourselves from those lifetimes too.
Beautiful. I love that.
All right, so we'll just get into that beautiful little state, and just know that you're safe to be able to do this and to be able to love yourself and the truth for what you're here. And just because you don't know why at the moment doesn't mean that you won't know why in the future, especially when we have the intention of wanting to know why.
Mhm.
Hi.
What a
Oh,
beautiful visual.
what did you see? Like, what was your visual, out of curiosity? Because I saw a weird ass visual like I usually do, but it kind of made sense once I kind of like.
I love it because usually we see something that relates, but mine was a visual of the sun.
Ooh.
And it was like each ray was being created as we did this work. And so by the end, that you, whoever's doing it, was shining as bright as the sun. Like you were lighting yourself up. It was gorgeous. Your radiance, your essence is coming online by doing this.
That's a beautiful vision. Plus the sun is like the foundation of our existence on Earth. It keeps plants alive, animals alive. So this is a reason why you could see that the sun was worshipped as a god in a lot of previous cultures and civilizations.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you people remember a ride at an amusement park I think at Hershey Park, it was called the rotor. You know, where
Yes.
you would get in this round thing and you'd be standing up against the wall, and then they would spin it so fast, and then the floor would drop out from you, and you would just be like centrifugally stuck to the wall. So I was seeing like everyone in this rotor, you know, I'm like, what the hell is this? And as it started to spin, and then when the floor dropped out, everyone was like in that panic state because they didn't have this foundation that they thought was keeping them safe.
Wow.
But it was more about the energy of letting go and creating a different perspective of what's possible. So once the floor dropped out, then all of this stuff that we were holding on to just got released and just went down with the floor. So it
Beautiful.
really allowed us to become more of what we are. And then when the floor came back up to support us again, it was like a completely different scenario that we've experienced something that we now understand that we didn't before.
A full reset.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I just thought it was interesting as the road. I mean, it's probably called different things in different places. I just remember Hershey Park Road was like the ride that was there.
And then you probably saw that right before I really saw the sun light
I know,
up, because it was like we dropped it and then light. That's what I love about these
so cool.
visuals we get.
Ooh, and the co-creative power is just amazing, and that's the thing I love about it is when we realize that we create our own existence is that we can choose to create something different. Just because we haven't experienced it yet doesn't mean that you won't, and that's why once you take ownership of what you create, then it does free up that energy. It doesn't make us reactive or a victim state, and we can look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and just to close, like you can always do a pulse check. How does that feel, those different states? To play the victim. I mean, even though you may feel, well, I'll just sit here, get attention from others, like no one really gets pleasure from being the victim.
No,
You And when you take ownership, yeah, it may be difficult, but at least there's a path forward and you're consciously creating it and you do have your power. So, just reflect on that. And I always tell my girls, to do a pulse check. Does it feel light for your heart? That'll guide you. If it feels like pressure on you, it's
but
not a good situation to be in.
so if there was a situation that happened with someone watching this where they got incredibly triggered and maybe we're not able to fully integrate what was being said or understand it, if you're drawn to either Kristin and I, reach out. It's what we both do, is what we both do sessions to help people on a deeper personal level understand the bigger perspectives of what they're doing, and then creating that unconscious balance and that still point that then will allow you to be able to create and choose something different than what you have before.
Yeah, and just know that everything's coming up for a reason.
Yep.
And when you see it, that's your ability to take action. So we'd be happy to help. Always know
Yeah.
you can reach out.
Wow. I didn't think we're going here today, but you never know where we're going to go.
Never do. I love it.
But yeah, so just kind of be gentle with yourself, be gentle with everyone else as much as you can. Try not to just judge another person, just by what they appear to be on the outside or what you've seen of them on their phone. Because a lot of people, if they take your worst moments in life and they just portray and look at just your worst moments in life, it's not an accurate reflection of the truth and what you are as an individual.
Absolutely.
So let's find more love and compassion for ourselves first. That's where it all starts. And then when we can accept things that we've done in this lifetime and other lifetimes with unconditionally accept it, just it was a choice. There's no wrong or right. If it happened, everyone agreed to it. It just doesn't take away the ownership too. We're not saying this just to release, choices that people have made and make it seem like it's okay. But it is to look at things a little bit differently, because we can't keep going around an eye for an eye. It's not going to give us what we want.
Right. We're not going to come back into harmony as a world.
Not at all.
Just it's delaying everything. So it's really important, and as you're seeing things on social media, maybe just offer a piece of advice rather than joining in, the point someone's trying to make. I actually used to run meetings that way. I'd be like, okay, don't chime in to, be complaining about it. Offer a solution. And I
Yeah,
think could you imagine if you start seeing solutions on every post now, it'll just shift things. So it's
it
something
really
to,
would.
yeah,
It's entertaining though. Don't get me. I mean, it is
it
entertaining.
is entertaining too.
Just go into a post or something, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah,
And
I'm always there for the comments.
oh God, yeah. Because there were times when we were probably doing the same thing when we weren't fully aware, and that's okay too. It's not a judgment of self of stuff that you've done in the past because you only know what you know. You know, you don't scream at a 5-year-old because they're not 8. You know, so you have to allow a person to experience their life through that timeline perspective. And just because a person may be not the kindest person at who they are right now doesn't mean that that can't shift or change. But we also don't want to, and if it doesn't shift or change, then I'm going to hate this person. You know, you're just, the more hate and anger that we put out, it's just a reflection of how we feel about ourselves.
Great advice.
Well, thank you so much, Kristin.
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone that's not chimed in, listened to us today. And again, keep chiming in and sharing feedback. It really helps us. So
Absolutely. So have a beautiful holiday weekend if you have a 3-day weekend. And yeah, just keep us in touch, keep in touch with us. Let us know what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and we'll just keep going from there.
all right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.